So Saturday night, the arguably the greatest fight card of all time. Saturday night, the last crescendo, Feb 22nd, Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. It has Beterbiev Bivol. It has Callum Smith, Joshua Boatzy. It has Virgil Ortiz, Israel Majamov. It has Floyd Schofield versus Shakur Stevenson. It has Zhilei Zhang versus Ajay Kabayel. And it also has it also has Shakur Stevenson versus Floyd Schofield, to name a few. But the main fight, not the main event, the main fight on people's minds, and how I know this is because even TNT, when they're showing trailers for this during the football the other day, they were showing Daniel Dubois versus Joseph Parker as the fight, you know? So that kind of goes to show. And listen, Daniel Dubois, if you take maybe Usyk, Joshua Fury out, he may very well be the biggest name in the heavyweight division. And to be behind those three guys in terms of name value, that still shows that you're a big, big name in the heavyweight division, certainly does. Joseph Parker, again, is another very much a known commodity, certainly in the UK. He's had many fights in the UK. Anthony Joshua, Joe Joyce, Chisora twice. There's been other events, other occasions as well. Part of Team Fury. So he's very well known in the UK in his own right. So this is a big fight, and a lot of people are really, really interested in it. Although this is the co-main event, I think that probably peak interest really is in this fight. As good as Beterbiev Bivol will be, I think the heavyweight division is always going to be the marquee division no matter what. And if you have a really, really big competitive fight in that division on any given card, it's going to draw interest. Certainly a world heavyweight title fight of this magnitude, which you could go and look at and say, this is a genuine, if not 50-50, it's close to 50-50. This is not a formality. This is not a foregone conclusion by any stretch of the imagination. Daniel Dubois versus Joseph Parker. Let's do a prediction. Let's talk about key strengths, what I think both guys need to do. But let's go over the tail of the tape first. And by the way, have a look just there very quickly on screen. You can purchase this amazing card via the link in the description below. The Zone will be showing it £19.99. You can use the Gman link provided in the description and go and have a look. Also, me and Ade have our Riyadh season special out. Our Feb 22nd Riyadh season special out. We recorded that last Tuesday. We actually said it was so big, we hope we weren't forgetting something. We forgot Israel Majamov, Virgil Ortiz. We did forget that. But let's talk about the tail of the tape. Let's start with the current reigning and defending IBF heavyweight champion of the world. Daniel Dynamite Dubois brings to the ring a record of 22 wins and 2 defeats. Of those 22 victories, only one man has seen the final bell, and that was Kevin Johnson many years ago now. Daniel Dubois comes into this fight off the back of a very good run of form. 27 years old, 6'5", with a 78-inch reach. Joseph Parker, the challenger, he comes into this with a professional record of 35 fights against 3 defeats, 23 of those wins coming by way of knockout. Daniel Dubois has a much, much higher knockout percentage, but that's not always the be-all and end-all. Joseph Parker comes from New Zealand originally. He is 33 years old, 6'4", with a 76-inch reach. So Daniel Dubois has the height and he has the reach. He may not be the bigger guy in terms of physical body mass in there, because if you look at his weight, I believe this was a career heaviest of 248 pounds against Anthony Joshua. You contrast that with how much he weighed against Alexander Usyk, 233 pounds. So in the space of just over a year, he's gone up by just over a stone. 239 against Miller, 245 against Hrgovic. So he's been gradually gaining the weight. Parker, though, if we look at his weights, he early on in his career he was coming in the 230s, but against Zhilei Zhang 247, against Wilder 245, against Simon Keane 250. He was actually 239 back in May of 23, and you got to bear in mind he was 255. That was his career heaviest against Joe Joyce. A lot of people are speculating that he's going to come in a similar weight that he did against Joe Joyce. Now, I personally thought that was a mistake by Joseph Parker coming in that heavy. At the end of the day, he's never really been the kind of guy you would expect to be in the 250s. It's not natural weight. A lot of it is muscle. Yeah, it's not like he's eating himself, and he's coming in, bloated or anything like that. But nevertheless, it's not necessarily natural. It's not his natural weight, so to speak. Daniel Dubois, on the other hand, at 27 years old, he still looks in very good shape. It looks he is more of a naturally bulky, thick-set, very strong man, and at the age of 27, as I said, you would expect him to kind of pack the weight on and fill out a lot more. So I think even if Joseph Parker is the heavier guy in there, he may find it very difficult up close with Daniel Dubois, because Daniel Dubois is very physically strong. He is extremely physically strong. He's quite good, in terms of imposing that. That's how he used to fight back in the day. He would really go in there, and it was crazy. He would fight guys like Razvan Kajanu, a 6'8" guy, much, much bigger, and he would just ragdoll these smaller guys around the ring until he bumped into Joe Joyce. And Joe Joyce, another guy who was very physically strong, a lot more physically strong, in my opinion, than Joseph Parker. That was one of the guys he couldn't ragdoll, but, not many people can, and you're talking about Joe Joyce firing on all cylinders back in 2020. So the weights are going to be very, very interesting to see what both guys weigh. And that might actually tell us, Joseph Parker coming in heavy, that will give us an indication of what he's going to do in this fight. And likewise, if he comes in light, which I don't think he will, that might also give us an indication as to what he's going to do in this fight. I say that because, well, let's talk about the run-up to this fight before. So Daniel Dubois fought Alexander Usyk as a mandatory challenger back in August of 23. And in that fight, a lot of people talk about Usyk maybe not looking the best, which I didn't actually. I thought he looked very good in that fight, to be honest with you. He was in control pretty much. He got hit with a very questionable shot. It was low. You look it back and you look at it enough times, it was low. At the time you're looking at it, you're kind of like, huh? But no, correct call from the referee. Daniel Dubois was able to have success in that fifth round just based off of that low blow that hurt Alexander Usyk. After that, Alexander Usyk just pieced him up and eventually made him quit in the ninth round. After that, a lot of people had questions about Daniel Dubois. Can he hack it at the highest level? What's he going to do? How is Frank going to bring him along? Well, Frank Warren is a very, very smart man when it comes to managing fighters, and he put Daniel Dubois into the deep end against Jarrell Miller on the day of reckoning. I mean, the day of reckoning couldn't have been worded any better. He came through it. He passed the test. He had some moments in that fight, but he came through it. And then he was put in there against Hrgovic, a man who'd handled him in sparring many years ago. Hrgovic thought it would be easy. It wasn't. He was able to come through that again. Daniel Dubois had to shift a lot of punishment early on in that fight, culminating in him destroying Anthony Joshua, destroying him in 5 rounds. So he comes into this fight off a great run of form. Joseph Parker, likewise, 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, he was knocked out the first time in his career. A lot of people and himself have said he wasn't well going into that fight, and that may have contributed to it. He gave Joe Joyce early on as good as he could get. For everything Joe Joyce was giving him, Joseph Parker was dishing it back out. He just couldn't dent the chin of Joe Joyce. It took someone like Zhilei Zhang to come along and dent it, and Joseph Parker was not a Zhilei Zhang in terms of punching power. So he couldn't really put a dent in Joe Joyce, and ultimately he got taken out in the 11th round in quite devastating fashion. It was a big, powerful left hook that put him down. He tried to beat the count, he couldn't. He came back from that, and actually, I really did have my doubts, because he came back against Jack Massey in early 23, and he didn't look good in that fight. But as the year progressed, he looked better and better and better, culminating in him beating Deontay Wilder by a lopsided decision, and then beaten, and I think he did legitimately deserve the win, Zhilei Zhang. So both guys coming into this fight off a good run of form. The crucial thing is Joseph Parker has been inactive. In 2023, he fought many times that year, many times. I think about 4 or 5 times. In 24, he only fought the once. Now, that was a follow-on from 2023 where he was very active, but he fought in March of last year, and that's it. It stopped up until now. It's been nearly a year. I mean, it's about, 50 weeks or so it's essentially a year. How will that affect Joseph Parker when he steps in between the ropes? Because Joseph Parker, judging by how he looked in 2023, the activity really did pay dividends to him. It really did. He was sharp, he was fighting regularly, and you could see he was getting better and better each fight. You stop that for a year, how is that going to help him? You contrast that to Daniel Dubois, he's been every bit as active. He had, how many fights did he have last year? He had 2 fights last year, but obviously he fought the very, very end of 23, and also had Alexander Usyk that year. So a very, very active Daniel Dubois over the last couple of years. Certainly, that could stand him in very good stead. In terms of this fight, let's talk about what I think both guys need to do. Joseph Parker, when he was up and coming, I was impressed. I liked the hand speed. He was more aggressive when he was up and coming, and you'll often find with Joseph Parker, when he's in there against someone who he doesn't feel a perceived threat from, he often will be a lot more aggressive. He'll sit down on his shots. He tends to get stoppage wins then, and he tends to look a lot more impressive than when he steps up and he fights the better competition. Not that he doesn't win, because he does. He wins a lot of them. But he tends to be a lot more cautious. He's a lot more conservative with his punch output. He likes the box. He likes to kind of, when it's safe to do so, I'll apply the pressure. I'll look to go for it, but only when it's safe to do so. And sometimes he leaves it way too late, like he did against Dillian Whyte. He left it until way too late in that fight. And when he did step on the gas, he had success. He dropped Dillian Whyte. And I've always said he lost that fight more so than Dillian Whyte actually won it, because I think the fight was there for Joseph Parker to win. It really was. And he's learned a bit from that, but he has still been a little bit too cautious in fights for my liking. There have been fights like in the rematch he had with Chisora where I think he should have got the stoppage win. I showed some clips of that in a video I did the other day. I think that when you look at it, you were like, no, you should have really gone through the gears, and you probably should have forced the stoppage in that fight. You didn't. You were a little bit too standoffish. You can't do that against Daniel Dubois. And I don't think he'll be allowed to, because I think that Joseph Parker standing off with Daniel Dubois and looking to box him, as I said in the tail of the tape, Dubois is taller, he has the longer reach, and he has the much, much, much better jab. Now, there is the old saying, you can't hook with a hooker, but you can jab with a jabber. I still think Daniel Dubois' jab is just too sharp and too powerful. I really do. And I think that at long range, Joseph Parker will be on the end of that jab. You've seen it against Anthony Joshua. You've seen it against many fighters. When Daniel Dubois is chucking that jab in their face with the power and the accuracy that it has, it really does offset a lot of fighters. Like Anthony Joshua, I mean, there was times in that fight, like I showed in the clips I showed about him in the film study I did, where the jab from Daniel Dubois alone was hurting Anthony Joshua, was snapping his head right the way back, and it was giving Daniel Dubois ample opportunity to try and punch off that. He was trying to lead in with left hooks then. He was trying to hook off the jab. So Daniel Dubois at long range, I think that Joseph Parker looking to box, looking to try and, get in, get out, I don't think that's going to benefit him really, to be honest with you. And when I say about the weights, if Joe Parker comes in saying the 250s, well, as far as I'm concerned, he's not looking to box Daniel Dubois if that's the case. He's going to be looking to go and take it to him up close. Daniel Dubois has a tendency to come in over his lead foot with his chin a little bit high, open then for an uppercut. He was dropping a lot of people. He dropped Simon Keane. He dropped Chisora a bunch of times. He's dropped plenty of people with that uppercut. It's a very good punch from Joseph Parker. Can also be countered, Daniel Dubois. He's very, very upright. There's nothing he can really do about that. That's just the way he's designed. That's just the way his body structure is. He's a very upright fighter. Whenever he tries to bob and move, it looks so ungainly. He can't really do it properly, again, because of the construct of Daniel Dubois. So Joseph Parker needs to take advantage of that. He basically needs to just throw in combinations. If he's missing with a right hand and Dubois is trying to slip a shot, know that he's going to be off balance. He's not going to be able to slip any more than really one shot at a time. So don't focus on single shots. If you're Joseph Parker, you're going to want to be the aggressor. You have to be the aggressor in this fight. You absolutely have to be the aggressor. And you've also got to focus on more than one shot. You've got to focus on more than a single shot at a time. I think personally Joseph Parker has the punching power to hurt and stun Daniel Dubois. I genuinely do. I think he needs to open up combinations to do that. He did that in spots against Deontay Wilder. I know he was very cautious in that fight as well, but in round 8 when he stunned Deontay Wilder, he did start to let the shots go, let the combinations go, and he never lost that hand speed. The hand speed is still there for Joseph Parker. He'll have an advantage in hand speed over Daniel Dubois. I have no doubt about that. So what he needs to do, as I said, just look to lead off, apply a bit of pressure. Don't try and box at range, because I just think that's just a recipe for disaster with Daniel Dubois, especially with that big jab. And if you are missing with single shots, open up a combination on Daniel Dubois. Make him feel uncomfy in there. Joseph Parker has spoken about Daniel Dubois potentially quitting in this fight. I think that Daniel Dubois may very well be gone. But if you want to bring that Dubois out, you're not going to bring it out by just outboxing him. You're not going to bring it out by just keeping it at range and, hoping for the best, hoping that I can win the battle of the jabs. That's just not going to happen. And at the end of the day, we kind of know, although saying that in Riyadh, the scorecards have been a lot fairer, than most places. But at the end of the day, Daniel Dubois, Usyk, that's the fight Turkey wants to do. You don't know what way the judges are going to see it. Especially, you see, for someone like Alexander Usyk when he fights Tyson Fury, when it's kind of obvious that, the box establishment wanted Fury to win, he wins those fights so comprehensively you can't see it any other way. And he's not boring, he's not standoffish, he's not giving them the opportunity to say, that round was a bit of a close round, wasn't it? 10-9 Dubois. 10-9 Dubois. He's not giving them any opportunity to do that. So Joseph Parker needs to be busy. Contrast that to Daniel Dubois. Daniel Dubois, he is a fighter who, you could tell that he's a Mike Tyson kind of fan because he comes to the ring, black shorts, black boots, black gloves. He has that just menacing look in his eyes. And you see him from the first round, he's on you like that. He's not feeling you out. Daniel Dubois didn't feel Anthony Joshua out. He didn't feel Filip Hrgovic out. He's on you like a bad smell. He's on you like a bad smell. Parker needs to be ready for that. He's going to have to endure an absolute S-storm early on because Dubois is going to be fresh. He's going to be looking to rip Joseph Parker's head clean off with big right hands and big, hard, heavy jabs. He really is. How is Parker going to take that? Parker, in my opinion, is going in here with the biggest puncher he probably will have faced other than Zhilei Zhang. And Zhilei Zhang was able to find holes in Joseph Parker's defense with fairly innocuous shots. Now, I would say Zhang is a bigger puncher than Dubois, but again, it's not like, Zhang is a bigger puncher, but it's not much of a muchness. If Zhang is 100 on this, if you're looking at stats in a boxing game, if power for Zhang is 100, power for Dubois would be 95, so you're not safe with him at all. So don't think that. And you give him opportunities to hit you, he's going to hit you. Unlike Zhilei Zhang, Dubois has a much better gas tank. He will go and he will absolutely try and follow up. He'll try and take your head off. He won't give you any room to breathe. He'll hit you wherever he can hit you. And he is an excellent finisher. Ask Anthony Joshua. So if he's going to come out like a steam train, like a bat out of hell, looking to attack Joseph Parker. And I think Joseph Parker needs to just try and meet him in the centre. I think he needs to try and meet him face to face, fire, man to man. Because I think if he just stands off, I don't think he's going to have enough to keep him off on the back foot. I think he's going to need to just try and engage with Dubois. You can counter him. You can punch with him. Punch with him and see what you can do. That's how I think you win. And I think that if you can actually put Daniel Dubois in his place a bit, then maybe the back foot boxing might work. If you're making Daniel Dubois very, I don't know if I should engage. I don't know if I should let that shot go. If you can do that, well then, part of the work is done. I don't think he'll do that. I think it's going to be Dubois early on, just really trying to put it on Joseph Parker and just seeing what Parker can do, seeing can he take it, can he hold up to it. At the end of the day, Parker, he can be a fighter who you can actually pressure him. He's not the best up close. Dubois is not the best up close, but he's all right up close, to be fair. But he is able to, he doesn't care. He'll just come up close and start hitting you with everything but the kitchen sink if he has to. So I think Dubois will do something like that. Ultimately, I got to give a pick on this fight. And I can see how both guys can win. I can see how Joseph Parker trying to look to punch with Dubois, trying to punch in combinations, trying to look to draw him into something. I can see how he can win doing that. I can also see how Daniel Dubois can steamroll Joseph Parker early on. I think this fight will be more competitive than the Joshua fight. I really do. However, I think that we are going to see a knockout. And my prediction for this fight is mid-rounds. I'm going to say between rounds 5 to 8. Daniel Dubois knocks out, or at the very least stops, Joseph Parker. That's my pick for this fight. Daniel Dubois stoppage win. I wouldn't rule out Joseph Parker winning on points or winning via stoppage. But I'm going with Dubois to win this fight. Mid-rounds stoppage. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed the video. You know what? This is the first time in a long time I picked Daniel Dubois to win a fight. Didn't pick him against AJ. Didn't pick him against Hrgovic. Didn't pick him against Miller. Didn't pick him against Usyk. So now that I am picking him, wait and you see. He'll lose. But I'm going with Daniel Dubois to win this fight via stoppage. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, people, I hope you enjoyed the video. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. And until next time, people, peace.